All right, hey there, folks. Even though signings, conventions, and other live events are back on track, I figured I'd keep bringing book tour to you. So, welcome to Russ's Rockin Rollercoaster, intriguing interviews with creative minds. It took me a while, but I've come around to embracing my author dark side. So, I've been spending a lot more time with horror. So, if you're a fan of vampires, demons, sci-fi, and other macabre fiction, you've come to the right place. And welcome tonight's guest, Steve Van Patten. A member of the Horror Writers Association and the Directors Guild of America, Steve is an award-winning author of various short stories and novels, including the vampire theme, the Brookwaters Curse trilogy, and the high-tech serial killer series Killer Genius, and he has his own publishing imprint, Black Vampire Productions. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right.
And that's actually Laughing Black Vampire.
Oh, sorry, Laughing Black Vampires. Bad on me.
Yes.
Thanks for correcting.
Yes. No, all good. All good.
All right.
Just don't want to get myself confused with the, other.
All right, the Dark Lord is already setting me straight. Okay, all right, just a heads up to the folks at home. Feel free to send me notes or questions you have for Steve in the chat box during the show, and we'll get to a few at the end. All right, Steve, as we always do, we'll start at the beginning. Where were you born? Where'd you grow up?
I was born in a lovely hospital in Manhattan, but I grew up in Brooklyn, New York.
All right. What part of Brooklyn?
Fort Greene, before it was the delicious gentrified Shangri-La that it is now. It was kind of the middle of the crack epidemic and stuff like that. It was not always.
Hold that thought. We're gonna do some diving there. So hang on.
Okay.
Hang on. I got stuff. We're gonna go there. We're going places. All right. So just give me the frame. So was it just you? Do you have brothers, sisters? What was the situation there?
Me, my mother, my somewhat alcoholic stepfather. He was kind of in and out. It was really just three of us.
Okay. So only child.
I'm an only child.
Okay. So talk to me as a kid. Like what were you into? What was your thing?
Well, it was funny because it was like I kept things on the low as a kid, but if I got to be completely honest, I was very much into all of it, all the nerd stuff, horror, sci-fi, comic books. Obviously that was definitely a part of it. I was full on escapism mode, at least until I got out of high school. So,
what was your that's a lot of stuff. So let's kind of break it down. So did you read, were you reading novels? Were you reading comic books, watching the movies and the TV, a little bit of everything?
A little bit of everything. And to be fair, I actually didn't get I paid attention to a lot of the superhero stuff, but my main title was Tomb of Dracula. And then Ghost Rider, and then Werewolf by Night behind that. And then I gave the attention to the mainstream stuff like the X-Men and Spider-Man and Batman. I wasn't that deep into DC until I got a little older. Then it was like, oh, okay, well, some of this is good too, particularly the Green Arrow stuff and whatever. But I was a big like Marvel monster person, even as far as Man-Thing and all that stuff.
So you were drawn. So you right out of the gate, you were into sort of the dark. You were into the darker.
Pretty much.
Dark. It's the dark and creepy, right? Right out of the gate. As far as you can tell, it's interesting. When you're a kid, we don't always know. We know what we love. We might not necessarily have the vocabulary and the sense of self to be able to articulate why we love what we love, but
absolutely.
We just know that we love it. But now, as you've got some years behind you, what do you think was that initial attraction to sort of that sort of darker, genre fiction? Like what pulled you to that side of it?
I don't know. I feel like it's like a mix of things. There's the adrenaline rush. There's the rooting for certain villains because they were very powerful. And, in your life as a kid, you're not feeling very powerful. So you kind of want to I don't know, emulate that, I guess, or you find that sort of an admirable trait, even if we are talking about, Dracula terrorizing a town and then deciding he wants to move to England and all that. Like, you find yourself, I guess, rooting for things that you probably shouldn't be rooting for. I don't know if you're, but yeah, I can honestly say that I kind of had a sort of a twisted sense of taste of what I was actually supposed to be enjoying, as opposed to, everybody else who was just like trying to get into like sports and hip hop and all
so
that.
that.
And I mean, I delved into that stuff too, but not
as much,
not as much.
So sort of a let's say like a dark wish fulfillment.
Yes, that's a good way of putting it. Right. A very good way of putting
it. Yeah, like it's one of those things like, I know I'm sort of not supposed to like this, which is maybe why I like it all the more. It's not right, and boy, is it tasty.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, I mean, to be honest, I kept a lot of that stuff to myself. Like if you found out that I was reading these comic books and I was, listening to both Rick James and Kiss and, Metallica and Patti LaBelle, then you'd have this sort of like, what the fuck? And I only let a few people in on that.
Right. Yeah. So that I want to hear about. So it's interesting. I mean, I find that, musically, just we'll stick with that for a sec. A lot of it's, if you get into music, all sorts of palettes, all sorts of colors, lots of stuff to play in. Going from Patti LaBelle to Metallica. I mean, that's especially at that time. I mean, and Kiss, and that's quite a range. Let me ask you. So, how many? So you did have a couple. Did you have a couple of buddies who are? Was it just that they knew that you were into it, or were they into it too?
To a degree. To a very, because then the other thing is, it's like you can't. I realized you couldn't talk about this too much with girls.
Hey, what did you do this weekend? Well, I was reading Man Thing. Like,
right, exactly. Like, that's not going over well at all.
No,
not at all. Like, your crush does not want to hear about the fact that J. Jonah Jameson's son is a werewolf. Like, they don't want to know. That's not something that's gonna like spark great lunchroom conversation.
But you're trying to say that, but he is, though. He is a werewolf. Don't you get it? He's
absolutely
right there.
And the other thing is, I was also not getting a lot of sleep because I was sneaking around watching horror movies at all hours of the night. Which was
okay. So talk to me about that. What were you watching?
Oh, wow. I remember, well, first of all, I accidentally saw The Exorcist way sooner than I should have. I think I was like 6.
Yeah, I think
that was a mistake. Like, I think people didn't know, like, clearly my mother didn't know what we were in for when we, like, it's just a movie that everybody's talking about, and there's no internet, and there's nobody to say, don't take your child to The Exorcist. So there's that. And then at home, it just kind of mushroomed. You would think I'd be done, but then all of a sudden I discovered Christopher Lee in the creature feature movies, and then PBS is constantly playing Dracula and Frankenstein, and I discover Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi, and I've got all these guys now, and then of course Peter Cushing, and then Peter Lorre and Vincent Price. It's like it just goes on and on because the stuff was on television all the time. But then the late night stuff, that's when you really like found these gems. And as my very good friend James Chambers and we share this passion for Kolchak the Night Stalker.
Yes.
Which I finally got to get on a panel and talk about it. This past SnokerCon. That was my show. And I,
Jim was just on here. We just did an hour on Kolchak a couple months ago.
And the thing is, my mother was what you would call an old school disciplinarian. And the only reason I got away with that is because she worked nights.
Right.
She'd go, all right, see you later. You're asleep. yeah, little does she know.
No, right. Yeah. Right.
Click. And
Right.
and it was fine. My grades didn't really suffer or anything behind that because I kind of had control over all of that. I was reasonably intelligent little kid. But yeah, I made a point of staying up, making sure I saw my nights. I mean, I also saw Don Kirshner's rock concert, not to age myself, but I
Right.
mean, it is what it is.
Right.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, my mother participated in a lot of this, and then Salem's Lot happened.
Ooh, oh boy.
And as a mother, I think watching the Glit kid scratching on the glass, I think that signed her out. Like, other than my stuff, she doesn't even read or,
Yeah.
but this is
That's
the
it.
same person.
I'm tapping out. That's it.
Right.
Done.
But this is the same person that had The Shining and a few other things laying around. And and that's when I got into the lit side of things. That's when I discovered Stephen King. I
Mhm.
mean, it was a whole, like, I mean, to be honest, it's like it's a good thing I managed to put that stuff down long enough to do my homework,
Right.
because I was all in. I was all in. I've always been all in, and
Right.
there it is.
So I want to go back. So now I want to circle back to where you were kind of starting from, because I think
Mhm.
it's all going to tie together. So, I'm in New Jersey now, but I was born and raised in New York.
There you go.
Most of my family is from Queens and Brooklyn. I lived in
Mhm.
myself for a while, and I can say for sure there are many different Brooklyns. So, talk to me about the Brooklyn that you experienced when you were those formative years.
I gotta admit, I was lucky. Um, I wasn't. I mean, while there were housing projects and crack dealers and everything else like a few blocks away, my specific block was very multicultural and very middle class. So what happened is, um, it was like you go outside and it was like United Colors of Benetton. Because we had me, a couple of other African American kids, we had a couple of West Indian kids, we had Filipino kids, we had big shout out to my boy Ron, because he was like a Filipino Bruno Mars, because he could play guitar and all this other stuff. And you practically, like, girls would walk up and the rest of us would be like stop signs, because basically all they wanted to do was talk to Ron. Yeah, it was a very we had the Latino twins from across the street, and oh my God, it was idyllic. It was
Wow,
beautiful.
I
It
mean,
was beautiful in a way. And the only
fascinating.
thing is, it didn't really prepare me
Right.
for what I was going to be seeing later on in life. But yeah, I'm very grateful for the fact that I would get invited into the house with my friends who were Liberian, and their parents would like take a shine to me, and they feed me all this spicy food, and it was a great
Wow.
time. It's like one of those things you look back and you're like, I didn't know how good I had it.
Wow. So I mean, right in the middle of, an urban setting, you sort of had this cultural oasis, it sounds
Hmm.
like.
Yeah,
Wow. I mean,
I mean, granted, once you wandered off the block, then
of
your
course.
life was in
Right.
danger, but and you had to handle that.
Talk to me about that, right? So you had indicated earlier that your stepdad had some issues,
Oh
um,
yeah.
and but then your block, you were surrounded by all this sort of wonderful influences, but
Hmm.
once you turn the corner, whole different world. So what is that like to sort of, within your dwelling, you had one kind of setup. You go
Hmm.
outside on your block, you have this other setup, turn the corner, and it's a whole different thing. So talk to me about like the sort of the distinctions and between those, you're juggling kind of a lot of different scenarios in a very small geographic area.
Yes. So sure, like Fort Greene Projects was not that far away. So, you had to, well, the way I handled it is I just made friends. Like, you're cool, I'm cool. I'm not, and I never got involved in anything too heavy, if that makes any sense.
Yep.
So the thing is, well, you know, um, I would just go to school and mind my business. I'd go play basketball, mind my business. And a lot of that, and basically back then, if I can, if I can kind of paint a scenario here, if you ever saw the movie Boys in the Hood.
Sure did.
And that one scene where they're going to avenge Morris Chestnut's character's death. And they've got Cuba Gooding Jr., aka Trey, he's in the car, and then they finally stop the car and they're like, Trey, go home. I'm Trey.
Right.
So that's anything that was happening too heavy, and I wasn't the only Trey.
Right.
So basically what would happen if anything too crazy was getting ready to jump off, you with the scholarships and all of this other stuff, get the hell out of here,
So they were, I mean, they were in their way, they were looking out for you.
Yes, absolutely.
Do you think that, I mean, did they, there's one thing to sort of, let's just say for, you were sort of a good kid. Did they see, I mean, was it part of the, the neighborhood shadow? Was it understood that, Steve's got kind of something going on here. Like you're not built for this world. Was that part of it, or was it unspoken? Was it?
It was an unspoken. It was more unspoken thing.
Yeah. Okay.
It was more unspoken thing.
All right. So let's stick with the city for a little bit, because obviously New York's, I mean, Brooklyn unto itself and the whole city has gone through wild evolutions over the decades.
Yes.
Peaks and valleys, certainly. So we're kind of here today. So, Mayor Adams came into office with a police background, but so far, he hasn't quite seemed to have really made his mark really on the city. That's sort of super noticeable, at least up front. Like what's your take on how's he doing?
Well, I'm not, look, here's the thing. I may not necessarily, at least now, I don't consider myself his biggest fan, but the problem with that election is the same thing that's happening a lot. And that is, you're given a bad choice and you're given a worse choice. Now, as a man of color living in New York, there's no way I'm voting for Curtis Sliwa.
Right. Oh God.
But that was the choice.
Right. I mean, which was so ridiculous.
Super ridiculous. It's like, how are we reduced to that? But then what happens, of course, is, the politicians that we do have, and especially the ones that are obsessed with kind of maintaining moral high ground, I feel like they just take a beating. And they're going to take a beating regardless. The only difference in certain politicians can kind of just march through that, do what they want, and they have their sort of like fanatic, following that empowers that. But in general, a lot of qualified people are likely to step away now that they've seen the beating that certain people take publicly.
That's right. Yeah. Like who needs this?
Right. Exactly. I can stay in the private sector. I can make mistakes, and they won't end up on the cover of the Times.
That's right.
So that's a big thing, I think.
Absolutely. No doubt. So we're going to transition a little bit, but I think you'll see where I'm going here. So the cannabis market is fighting to become a mature business sector, but in many ways, it's still the Wild West, in large part because cannabis is still classified as a Schedule I drug, such that the federal banks won't fund these businesses.
That's right.
Various dispensaries are opening in New York City, although both here and across the U.S., only about 1% of all licenses are awarded to people of color. What do you think about the cannabis industry and what's happening?
Well, look, it's New York. I hate to say it, and it's one of the things that makes being here very difficult. New York is a city of grift. I'm just going to come out and say it. It's a city of grift. And you have to grease palms in order to get what you want. And that's just a sad fact of life. And so what's happening, there was supposed to be a lot of changes as far as the cannabis thing goes, including people who are serving 50 years for moving a dime bag in Washington Square Park
Right.
Those people were supposed to get some comeuppance or achieve some sort of level equity or something along those lines.
That's right.
And that has been slow
Yeah.
to happen. And then on top of that, because certain loopholes and leeways and everything else like that have taken place, other people have they've skipped the line.
Well, actually, it's funny. I have just professionally, I have a bunch of business associates. I'm actually sort of in the cannabis industry a little bit tangentially.
Mhm.
And apparently now, have you heard there's burner product. And what that means is California is sort of overgrown. What they're doing is they're shipping sort of how they ship it product out here sort of illegally. And what's happening is that it's starting to fund a lot of these dispensaries are starting to buy up that product because you have to have your own grow site in state. You can't go across state lines. And what's happening is California is really it's sort of an open secret that they're actually, a lot of the product is coming from there, and they are actually in danger of, their whole industry is in danger of collapsing out in California. And it's actually having reverberations out here, which is, I want to transition from over here. So let's talk about when you first got serious about writing and your role in the production of the book, Growth, The Basics of Our Garden.
Oh, well, that's that's kind of an off the wall kind of story. So here's the thing.
That's what we like.
I worked, and don't hold this against me, but I actually worked for MTV for about 12 years.
Yeah.
And in that period of time, I became friends with several of the on-air talent, including Talia DaCosta, Hillary Burton, several others. And, some people kept in touch and some people didn't, and that's fine. But one of the people that did keep in touch was this fellow named Ray Munns. Ray Munns was the very first winner of, no, I'm sorry, he was the second winner. Jesse Camp was the first. Ray was the second winner of I Wanted to Be a VJ. And let's just say Ray's treatment, courtesy of other people at MTV, was not great. As a witness to it, and as someone who would still have to get him on stage and kind of just, bolster him up so he could get through his broadcasts, we remained friendly over the years. He watched me go through my struggles and my publishing stuff and everything else from a distance. And then he had the idea to put out a growth book about marijuana. And in the interim of him leaving MTV, he had moved back to Vegas with his father.
I'm sorry, what year is this?
What year did he win? I want to say that was it 99, 98, something like that? Okay. I'm not even sure.
Okay, so we're going 25 years back here at this point.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But like I said, we remained friends.
Yeah.
And then he came to me and he was like, I want to put this book out. And the way I explained it, and I said, look, I can tell you how to do it, or I can publish it. But if I publish it, then, I take the publishing credit. I do this, I do that. You got to give me some money, I get like a percentage, I explained all that to him, and he still wanted to go through with it. And he was like, okay. And then he had this other gentleman by the name of Jacob Pisano, or one or the other. I've actually never met Jacob, but I'm sure he's a lovely person. However, in the middle of publishing the book, these two pull a freaking Eagles, and they stop talking to each other. They get into some kind of big beef. And now I'm like, really, fellas? It's like we're actually having a like full on soap opera right now. We put the book out anyway. It initially did very well on Amazon, and I only released it in ebook because Ray insisted on a lot of pictures. But as you know, from doing your own thing, and most of the people on this thing right now with us, printing costs money, and especially if you're going to have photos.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't going through I wasn't going to go through a print order. So then only 5 Rastafarians buy the damn book. It's like, I was not doing that.
Right.
So I just released it on ebook, and it was actually pretty high up in like the gardening categories for a while.
What was the essence of the book though? The theme of the book was what?
It was very how to
How to grow
marijuana, basically. Yeah. It was very much a gardening book. Thank you, Carol. It was very much a gardening book, and it was and the thing is, as I was editing the thing, I was like, okay, there's some stuff that's actually like a little over my head, because he's talking about pH balances and all this other stuff that frankly, I kind of have forgotten since biology class. So I'm going through it, and then I have to keep calling him just to verify things, and how am I supposed to know this and know that and whatever. So it was actually very educational for me if I ever actually get myself
so what did you get? So I mean, it's sort of for someone who really you focus really on genre fiction, what did you take away from that experience with him doing this book?
What did I gotta tell you, the whole like the two of them wanting to publish his book and now they're mad at each other thing, like that was that was, I mean, I was angry, I guess, because of course now you've got two talent, if I'm going to treat it like a TV thing. I've got these two stars that aren't talking to each other, but we're supposed to be promoting a book.
Oh, jeez.
So it was very much like my experience in television, kind of sort of prepared me for this, but it's not like I wanted to go through it.
So talk to me a little bit more. I want to hear more about your time in TV. Talk to me about that.
Well, let's see. So here's the thing. When I was in college, I managed to be the station manager of my campus TV station. Managed to rise through.
What school?
Oh, sorry, Long Island University.
Okay.
In Brooklyn campus.
Yep.
And I had, won a scholarship. I succeeded in all these different ways. And then I graduate, and I'm in the middle of Reaganomics. I'm this skinny black kid that has no real connections outside of a couple of internships and things like that. But after a couple of years, I got lucky. And this outfit, HBO Downtown Productions, they needed a production assistant. I happened to be at the right party. I met, and I got to talking with one of my neighbors about what I'd been doing in school. And she was like, okay, great. But being a production assistant in a big old real professional outfit, that wasn't the same thing as all the hoity-toity stuff I had done in school. So there's a little bit of an ego bash there for a second. Right. I was like, oh, wow, wait. Oh, you want coffee? Okay. And all this other stuff. But they were good enough. And there was one gentleman who was especially good at kind of like making sure that I got into certain things, and they put me on a teleprompter. So and in that I was actually working on Short Attention Span Theater, which was one of Jon Stewart's first shows.
Oh, nice.
I got to meet some pretty heavy duty people, and then I happened to meet this one stage manager, oddly enough, also named Steve. He wanted to be a director. So the thing is, people in charge were like, well, if you're going to be a director, who the hell is going to stage manage? And he pointed at the skinny black kid in the back of the room. And then that's kind of what kind of pushed that along.
Go back a second. Just so you said you met name drop for us.
No, Steve Paley. He's currently the director of Weiland Out.
Okay. Who you said who else did you get that you wind up crossing paths with in your team life?
And well, at this point, pretty much everybody. Like J-Lo, J-Hud, Diddy. I mean, like everybody. I mean, seriously, it's like even De Niro at one point.
And was this all through MTV, or was this through various other?
Well, no. Now what I'm really getting into a lot happened at MTV, including very brief interactions with people like Madonna and so on. But for the most part, the heavy stuff happened after MTV when I was running around doing a lot of freelance stuff.
Like, well,
and of course, at my current gig at the Tamron Hall show.
Tamron Hall?
Yeah, it's a daytime talk show.
Got it.
Lots of big guests and such.
So are you still doing that now?
Yeah.
Huh. So what's that?
Well, actually, we're on hiatus now.
Yeah.
So
because of the writer strike?
Well, no, but just that was a scheduled hiatus anyway.
So what's that like? So I mean, working on a daytime talk show, like what's the energy like there? What goes on? Tell us some behind the scenes. What happens there?
What happens? Basically, you get there at 7 a.m. There's a meeting with the director and the camera guys and the rest of everybody, and we all kind of discuss what the vision of the show is. And there's a rundown, there's paperwork, and then you spend a little time like kind of just blocking. And when I say blocking, it's like, so this chair should be here, that chair should be here. We need this shot, that shot. Don't forget this, is this one's handing in a gift, so somebody has to be ready. You have lots of.
Does it run fairly smooth, or is there, do the guests like cause problems? Does the
sometimes sometimes it's a guest, sometimes it's us. Sometimes it's miscommunication between the producers and any one of us and all kinds of things like that. Any TV show that you work on, even a very well executed TV show, has the ability to plunge into madness at any given moment. And the best thing you can do is maintain a certain diligence in order to get through that.
So, I mean, I'm just making an assumption here that, you guests come on, the hosts are on, look, they know people are watching, egos are involved, lots of insecurities going on. People get slighted, egos get slighted in the simplest of ways. I told you I like, milk in my coffee and this is black, whatever it is. I mean, it could be the smallest thing. Just give me one nugget of like where you don't have to name drop if you're not willing to, but give me one little, what's one tantrum that sticks out that someone just like blew their stack over seemingly nothing.
I can give you the name because he's dead.
Okay.
So Scott Weiland was at it. This is back in my MTV.
Wow,
days.
STP, yeah, Stone Temple.
Yeah. And they were doing some live performing stuff and things like that. But I feel like he might have been in the middle of like a relapse or something like that. And so there was a little miscommunication between the control room, myself, and the band.
Right.
And I had to stop them because they went without me. They started playing, and then I had to stop them and everything else like that. And and Carson Daly, and it's the whole TRL scene. We go to commercial break. He walks over the stage, and this is in front of everybody, and he just starts laying into me like, oh no, really bad, like just like name calling and all kinds of other stuff, right? And I walk away, and then, and to make it worse, a talent executive goes appeasing him and basically throwing me under the bus.
Of course.
And I have to listen to that now. I'm out in the hall, basically waiting to get fired at this point. And the head director, who, by the way, is the same guy that I was talking about earlier, Steve Paley, he comes downstairs. He wasn't the one directing that episode.
Right.
But the woman who was directing the episode, she came and apologized. And I was like, because it was kind of her fault, sort of. Right. So we had that conversation. And he comes downstairs because now there's like you just pissed off Scott Weiland.
Right.
So I'm probably looking at being fired. But as I'm standing there with the rest of the crew and head director and everybody else there, one of the other Stone Temple pilots, I think I'm blanking on his name, but one of the other Stone Temple pilots comes around the corner, walks up to me, and in front of witnesses says, "I don't know what the hell is wrong with Scott. I'm sorry that happened. Da 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 da."
Wow.
I thank him. He walks away. My job is saved.
Woo! Oh, geez. All right. All right, that's a
Yeah.
good one. I could listen to this all day, but we got to move on.
Yes.
It's a quick interlude for some folks who came in a little late. If you have any questions or comments for Steve, send them in the chat box and we'll get to a few at the end. All right, so let's move on to your fiction life. So a lot of your fiction takes an historical bent, such as with your vampire series, the Brookwater's Cursed. First, and I wanted to, this is kind of tying back to the beginning. What's your attraction specifically to vampires? And two, why did you set this vampire trilogy in an 1860s Georgia plantation?
Okay. Well, to be honest with you, one of the many things that kind of got me on this trail, along with the overall fandom of horror, was as I got older, of course, I started to notice how people of color were treated / mistreated within the genre. And I am not the first African-American to point out how, becoming a fan of something in this life, in this country, in this world, it's sometimes the realization is you are loving something that does not love you back.
Yeah, right.
And so there were a couple of things that set me on the horror trail, but I will point to the Blackula movies,
right,
specifically as something that, because, okay, obviously 1972, 1973, when these movies come out, from the eyes of the 2023 moviegoer, these movies don't exactly hold up. But William Marshall's performance was startling amazing. And it affected me at a very early. Like, I don't know how old I was when I first saw the thing. It's like maybe 10.
Right.
But it was like this strong, dignified Black man who was also beating the hell out of cops and all that other stuff. So it was kind of like, oh, okay, stick a pin in that.
I'm down with this.
Stick a pin in that and hang on to that. And then so the thing is like, I couldn't, when I decided to tackle fiction in general, I couldn't attack it from being an African, but I am an African American. And I said, well, and the thing is, I'm growing up in a very volatile time, crack epidemic and all that other shit. So I basically turned around and said, all right, well, what would be the path of a Black vampire making it to modern day? And basically the books are my exploration of that, along with fighting vampires and fighting other vampires, fighting werewolves, fighting shapeshifters, a big vampire civil war. It's basically everything my screwed up imagination had to kind of like pull together within those 3 books.
Right. Okay. So some of your books, or at the very least your covers, have a real kind of Blade vibe to them. Was Blade an influence on you?
To a degree, but I mean, the covers were a collaboration between myself and, the people that can actually draw stuff. Unfortunately, that was never me. It was one of those things I was exploring as a little kid. I specifically remember a really cool like chalk werewolf thing I did back in the day. I'm pretty sure it doesn't exist anymore unless it's somewhere in my mother's stuff. Yeah, I was never that was never something that I was strong with, or let's just say it's something I didn't cultivate.
Okay.
Because ultimately, I mean, if you take the time, you can cultivate anything. But when I found myself in a position where I was like, well, I need covers, I had to rely on other people. And other people, of course, are influenced by outside things. Blade, which is, an iconic cartoon, comic book character on his own. And I found him the same way everybody else who's old enough found him long before the movies. Tomb of Dracula 10, I believe, is where he's first introduced. Of course, back then he kind of looks more like Shaft. He's got a fro, he's got a brown jacket, he's got throwing knives, and he's not really vampirish in the sense that he's just immune to the bite, and then that over the years, he evolved into this almost like Batman-ish character. And of course, there were the movies. The first two, which are actually really brilliant, and the third, I have issues with the third.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I
All right.
lots of issues with the third, to be honest. But well, so did Wesley Snipes, because he didn't even participate in the press stuff.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to find out what he, was really going through at the time.
Right.
Anyway, so yeah, I could see where you think that, but I also tell people that one of the big differences between Christian Brookwater and Blade,
right,
is that Christian actually has sex. Blade doesn't really get to do that too much,
right.
Which is kind of crazy if you think about it, especially when he's back in the 70s where everybody's having sex. But Christian, he bites people, he kills, he does his thing in a controlled way, in a controlled manner, which is kind of like how I handle how I kind of handle vampires coexisting with human beings. There's like quotas and limits and little things in place that kind of keep things in check, so you're not blowing the whole big secret.
But he's still got time to get his freak on, though, right?
Yes, as it should be.
As it should be. Absolutely. All right.
I mean, he's got a whole trilogy, and he gets to watch one girl die in his arms, and that's kind of it. And it was like, come on, you got Bad Santa running through like. Anyway, I
gotta ask you. So you've won a few African American literary awards. I mean,
yes.
good on you. Is it more meaningful to you, or really no different, to be recognized by African American associations than with those unaffiliated with race? Does it have extra meaning for you, or does it not matter? I'm
happy to win whatever.
Right.
Okay. Because when you're an independent and you're kind of just out here without a big media machine behind you or anything else like that, recognition is recognition.
Fair enough.
And I am grateful for all of it.
Sounds good. All right, that was great. But now it's a time on this special segment on the show where we spin the wheel. On the wheel are 7 possible categories, including a few new ones I created just for tonight's show. Wherever it lands is what you get. And the categories are Apocalypse, Blade Runner, Music Lover, Blood-Sucking Fiends, Quantum Leap, Desperately Dreaming Dexter, and Kick Him in the Junk. You ready?
Sure.
All right, let's see. You never know what's going to land. Come on, baby. Give me something good. And you got Quantum Leap. All right.
Quantum Leap. Wow.
Yeah. All right. So you volunteered to step into the Quantum Leap Accelerator. Only you get to pick where you go and when within your own lifetime, past, present, or future. What's your destination?
Okay. I'm me.
Yep.
But I can go past in my life.
Within your
past,
lifetime.
Present.
Within your lifetime.
Ooh, but I still know what I know.
You still know what you know.
Oh, I'm going back to high school.
The high school. All right.
I'm going back to high school to fix a couple of things. Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Got a few wrongs you got to put right.
Yeah. Just little stuff.
Yeah. There's someone, there's one or two dudes that maybe need a little bit of a beat down, maybe.
Yeah, well, and you know what? Here's something I've never said publicly, but I am under the impression that someone actually stole my geometry like they switched out my Regents test for geometry.
Get out of here.
And yeah, but no, and it's because when the scores were posted, and here's the thing, I was killing geometry, and this person was not.
Oh, you.
And when the grades were posted, he had a 99 and I had a 78. And I didn't quite like and it's like nothing you can do really at the time. At least it didn't feel like you could. But because I remember I took that test, I left early, and that's where I messed up. So that's that's, that would be one of the things that I would rectify.
All right. All right. Fair
But
enough.
there's a list.
All right, good for you. All right. So now what we're going to do is that was awesome, but now we're going to time to pick your poison. I've got 3 choices for you. A, B, and C. I'm not going to tell you what's behind each one. We'll see how much time we have to get to them. So
Okay.
pick one, A, B, or C.
Okay. I'll go with C.
C. All right. Thick skin. So whenever we put a book or a story out there, we're also putting ourselves out there open to criticism of all kinds, the good, bad, and everything in between.
Yes.
How do you feel about reviews? Do you take them personally? Do you let them roll off you, or do you have just a few that just stick in your craw?
A lot of times when I do get a questionable or a bad review or whatever, I look at who the person is. And I look at, because some people have a very cookie cutter way of what their expectations are, I want to say. And when I get, I specifically remember somebody saying, well, he's like Christian Brookwater is basically the same guy from beginning to end. And that's like, to me, that's I'm a rigid English professor type, and I don't, and also, not to be dismissive, but sometimes I feel like storytelling, like if somebody sees a different kind of storytelling than what they're used to, then if it's not linear enough for them,
right,
then they're gonna like get into these like shakes. But my thing, the way I write my stories is very much, I'm depicting a life, even if it's the life of a vampire. So that life doesn't necessarily follow I mean, to a degree, I try to get to the, something big should happen by this page, that page. Like, I've studied enough to know the basics of the basics of the kind of pacing people are expecting. But
when they can't handle it, when they can't, you went off, you dared to go off script.
I did.
You son of a, no.
Exactly.
That's right.
And I take that. I take that.
All right, fair enough. All right, so A or B?
Well, let's do A now.
All right, so Book of a Lifetime. All right, I'm going to give you 2 options that will define the rest of your writing career, and you can only pick one. Here are the options. Now, it's got a little bit of a wind-up, so just bear with me, all right?
Okay.
Your next book is an international bestseller. You win every award there is. You make tons of money. Your book gets made into a movie that wins the Academy Award for Best Picture. You can ride this success forever. You will always be that guy. However, every book you write after that one, I'm talking every single one, is an absolute dumpster fire. Critically trashed and a commercial zero. You are called a washed up hack who can no longer even string together 2 cohesive sentences. Or you keep writing as you've always done. You are generally well respected, but there won't be any massive awards in your future, and the financial end of things will be kind of wherever they are now. If it were up to you, given these 2 choices, which career path do you pick? Book of a Lifetime or Steady as She Goes?
Well, I've been doing Steady as She Goes for a while now, so I think I could definitely use the cash in the Book of a Lifetime, and then I'll just, I don't know, move to Spain or something like that.
There you go. It's like, later bitches, I'm out of here.
Basically, yeah.
All right, good on you. All right, so we'll do one more real quick. You know what? We don't have time to do another one. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to our advice column. Okay, what's the best and worst writing advice you've ever been given?
Ooh, the best is keep going, no matter what. The worst advice, it wasn't really so much advice about writing. It was, okay, so I had this publisher that booked me for an event, as one would do, you go places, you set up a nice little table. In my case, you might put like a little fake skull here, put some candy down, whatever. But
What do you mean? You mean like this guy?
yeah, precisely.
There you go.
Very handsome, very handsome. Anyway, so we ended up, I don't even remember where it was, somewhere in Jersey, but I was exactly one table away from some Trump supporter type person who, obviously does not see the worth or agency of a Black vampire story. And there were other people around, and we sold nothing.
Right.
And it was just like, it was one of those things where it was just like, wow, we don't know what we're doing, do we? And also, it was also one of those things where the event was going to a certain length of time, but my instincts were like, you know what?
I'm out.
I think we can leave before the sun goes down.
Yep.
I think that would be prudent.
Yeah.
The whole,
Yep. No.
God, guns and country crowd, like
That's
they're
right.
obviously not feeling me. So
know your crowd, right?
No, exactly.
All right. That's great. So now I'm going to give you some truth serum. I'm going to ask you 10 questions. You ready?
Oh boy. Okay.
Okay. Favorite flavor ice cream?
Chocolate.
What's one food you will never eat ever for any reason?
Liver.
I'm with you. Bucket list destination anywhere in the world?
Ooh, Turks and Caicos.
Oh, nice. Scariest movie you ever saw?
Honestly, The Exorcist still kind of holds that medal.
God, at the proper age to see that, I think, is when you're dead.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't deal with it. All right.
Nice.
If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Flight.
Do you play any musical instruments? And if not, which one if you could?
There was a brief time. Remember, I told you about Ron, aka Filipino Bruno Mars. There was a time I was kind of studying bass just so I could be the bass player while he's out being Mr. Sexy Dexy guy. But I kind of washed out with that. I would actually now I would love to be that guy that just kind of strolls into somebody's house and it just starts jamming on their piano.
Nice.
But that has yet to
tickle the ivories. All right. Cats or dogs?
Oh, both really. But I mean, I have a cat, so I guess edging more of that just because the cat's better for my lifestyle.
Mine's crawling around here somewhere.
I saw.
Yeah. And the dog's upstairs too. There you go.
Okay.
Favorite cocktail, and if you don't drink, your favorite unwind beverage?
Everybody's laughing right now. Honestly, when I'm really unwinding it, tequila. Ooh. I'm a tequila guy.
Yes, I'm with you.
I do red wine on occasion, Montepulciano to be exact. I'm a big fan of that because it's not too, it's a great flavor and it's not too anything. It's not too sweet. It's not too dry. It's kind of, most Montepulcianos land right dead center in what you want in the red wine.
Right.
For me.
Okay. You can see a live performance, sports, music, theater, whatever, any seat, any venue, any time in history. What's your choice?
I gotta make something up for that. It never happened.
Okay.
But it's something I always thought was a really good idea. Parliament and Kiss on the same ticket in the 70s.
Okay. All right. Right on. Okay. If I had a million guesses, I never would have come up with that, but good on you. All right. If you could get a continuation of any canceled TV show ever, what would it be?
Lovecraft Country.
Okay. All right. There you go. Okay, that was great. We have a few minutes, so we'll take some questions if we have any, although I'm not necessarily seeing any. Here we go. Okay, Steve, what's it like working with your other authors for Hell at the Way Station, etc.?
Usually it's a blast, So Mark Abbott, Kirk Johnson, and now Denise Tapscott, who will appear in the third Hell installment. We're actually all the best of friends. And if you watch our podcast, you see us constantly beating the hell out of each other, but in a loving family sort of way. I mean, it's usually fun. And the best thing about it is we kind of handle our writing together, kind of like a really successful basketball team, in that whoever is hot in that particular moment, they're the one, they're the hot hand, they get the ball.
Hot hand gets the ball. All right, fair enough.
Yes.
All right. If you could write any existing character in pop culture, who would you choose?
Wait, say that again?
If you could write any
Right.
existing character in pop culture, who would you choose?
Ooh. Oh, that's tough. You know what? Bob Marley.
Oh, right on. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, very cool. All right, one last one, and we got to wrap up. If you
Okay.
could recast a movie or TV show, which one and with whom?
I would dig into Dark Shadows.
Oh, my mother used to love that show.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. And I would cast Angela Bassett as Angelique.
Oh, no way.
Yes,
Oh,
buddy.
that's great. That's great. All right, good on you. Okay, so with a few minutes left, I'm going to share my screen, and we've got some stuff from Steve to show. So hang on 1 second, and I'll be right with you. All right, share the screen. Here we go. Boom. All right, so Steve, talk to me.
Yes.
What are we looking at here?
This is the cover of Brookwater's Curse, my first baby, right there. And yes, it is the epic adventure of an 1860 Georgia plantation slave who becomes a vampire. There are also 2 other installments that basically bring him to current day. And it's very much a big old supernatural epic romp.
Awesome. Where can folks find these books?
Amazon, of course. And of course, my website, www.laughingblackvampire.com.
All right, right on. Everyone, grab a copy because I know I'm gonna. All right, that's great, Steve. As for me, here's the cover of my latest upcoming book, Blunt Force Rising. This is the 4th book in my ongoing series featuring hardboiled private eye Angela Hardwick. In my mind, Hardwick is part Blade Runner, part Doctor Who, and part Atomic Blonde. And Blunt Force Rising, Hardwick and her partner Eric Whistler are they're providing extra security on a Galaxy cruise ship for an AI robotics and cybernetics conference. But that event quickly devolves into a bitter fight between the pro-android and anti-android community when a murder takes place on board, setting off a chain of events that's even more horrific that Hardwick has ever seen. And when it's all said and done, I think it's safe to say that Hardwick and Whistler will definitely never be the same. And Blunt Force Rising is actually a new one for me for 2 reasons. One, it's the first full-length novel I've written that's a single setting closed room murder mystery, which was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. And 2, it's my stab at some sci-fi horror. So beware. Blunt Force Rising will be on sale in September with a pre-order coming out soon. And in the meantime, I'll encourage you guys to check out the first 3 books in the series, Crackle and Fire, Fractured Lives, and Hot Ash, which are all available on Amazon and published by Crazy 8 Press. All right, Steve,
Nice.
Thank you so much for coming by. It was absolutely great to see you. And I want to thank everyone who's watching at home. And as always, be gentle, be kind, be gracious, and go read a book. And I'll see you all next week for my season finale. Take care, everyone. That's it.
Thank you, Russ. Thank you, everybody.
Be good. Thanks for coming by. All right. See you,
Yeah.
folks. Bye now.